Down, Mr. Rhodes.
Sir, I'm placing you under citizen's arrest. I'm placing... You're assaulting me. You're interrupting a citizen's arrest. I'm placing you under citizen's arrest for war crimes in the Yemen. Saudi crimes in Yemen. I'm placing him under citizen's arrest. I'm placing you under citizen's. So that was Ahmed Assiri. He's a major general in the Saudi armed forces, where he is the chief apologist for the war crimes in Yemen. Why are we allowing this war criminal to wander around the British streets when we know the UN's condemned it, 2 parliamentary committees have condemned it, Amnesty, Oxfam, Human Rights Watch? He's a war criminal.
You are criminal! You are criminal! Don't let them intimidate you.
My name's Sam Walton. I am a human rights and peace advocate. My mum definitely brought me on a bunch of demonstrations that helped me believe that I could change the world.
He was brought up in the Quaker meeting, so Quakers have values of truth and integrity, and we're all equal before God, and that we shouldn't be violent and kill and so on. And Sam's always been a person of great integrity.
For me, the arms trade is the root evil that drives so much that's wrong with this world. We're building our economy on the corpses of innocent people. When British bombs are dropped in Yemen, we're complicit. We know where those bombs are going when we sell them those bombs. That's my taxpayer money going towards that. That's the government that I am responsible for, and I can't stand by and let that happen. When the government so determinedly shuts down all legal means, the only thing we can do is protest and take direct action.
There's lorries down there full of guns and bombs and tanks and stuff, and while we're hanging here they can't get through, so we're just trying to stop them to go about their business. I've held banners and I've walked and stuff and shouted, but I've never done this sort of direct action. Get arrested, get released, go to court, get a sentence, live life, do it again maybe.
In some ways it's really sad. All of us would rather be somewhere else doing something else more productive, but we have to be here stopping this.
On January the 29th in 2017, myself and the Reverend Daniel Woodhouse used bolt cutters to cut through the fences into Britain's largest arms manufacturer. The aim of the action was to use hammers and crowbars to disarm the £100 million Eurofighter Typhoon warplanes. We could see these planes through the door, and we were attacking it with a crowbar to try and get through the door. Security heard us, and we were caught.
We would have woken up one morning at 6 o'clock by our other son telling us that Sam had been arrested. I was very surprised that he'd gone there, that he'd done that, because I had no clue. Sometimes you just feel you have to do something more, and it was when he saw a British bomb that had bombed a pile of food given by the United Nations in the Yemen. He thought, this is just wrong, and he had to do something more.
Quakerism's got a rich tradition of dissent. When you get arrested, you get put into a book of sufferings, which was started in the 17th century and has got kind of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Quakers' names in it. Sometimes our loyalty to God's purposes trumps the loyalty to society's purposes.
We are on
on trial this week for attempting to prevent war crimes. Sometimes people see it as a crime to stop war crimes, so we're trying to work out whether it is or isn't. I would argue it isn't, regardless of what the law says. The worst that could happen for us is we could be found guilty, and then there'd be some kind of sentence. I'm not sure how severe that would be. The very maximum they can give us is a month in prison for it being a magistrate's court.
There's something quite scary and quite awe-inspiring about people who act on their principles with such integrity and take on really big issues. He will go on doing things for the sake of love and truth. Who knows where that's going to lead him.
21 years ago, Andrea and I were part of a women's disarmament action where we broke into the same British aerospace site at Warton, and we disarmed a Hawk jet which was due to be sold to the Indonesian military. In our action, we were ultimately acquitted as we presented our case that we had acted with reasonable force to prevent the crime of genocide and war crimes in East Timor.
Unfortunately, they haven't got a jury trial, so their chances of acquittal are not as great as ours were. I think activism is a really important part to keep putting pressure on government, to keep putting pressure on these arms companies, and to keep the issue in the public eye. And I think it's really important that there is that radical voice that people on the fringes are saying, with their lives and their bodies, they are saying, this is so wrong, I'm prepared to go to prison for several years.
Hi, is that Kat?
Yep.
Hi, it's Sam. I'm 5 minutes early. Sorry.
Very good. I'll press the button.
Great, thanks.
On the press side would be a letter from a Bahraini to the Queen in a newspaper like The Guardian. Dear the Queen, please don't host King Hamad because he's terrible for these reasons.
I think the police are likely to be a lot more targeting of Bahrainis.
Yeah.
And one of the things we have to do to overcome that is to actively try and integrate. The King of Bahrain is one of the vilest despots in the world. He's an absolute tyrant. He's going to sit next to the Queen at the horse show. The reason why we're allowing that to happen is because Bahrain is buying loads and loads and loads of weapons from Britain that they're using to repress their population, disappear people, all sorts of awful things. King Hamad needs to be seen as legitimate. If you were an unelected despot that had repressed democracy in your country, renowned only for your reputation as a terrible human rights abuser, you too would need legitimacy. By being seen next to the Queen, he gets that vital legitimacy. Al Khalifa's got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho. Al Khalifa's got to go, hey, hey, ho, ho. I will only stop taking action like this when either I no longer can because I don't have the energy or the wealth. It costs a lot of money. Or when I can no longer be effective. We've been found not guilty today, but the guilty party has been shown to be BAE Systems and their activities in arming Saudi Arabia and their war crimes in Yemen. The feudalistic way they run their state, the way they invade neighbouring states, indiscriminately bomb civilian infrastructure, kill tens of thousands of people, create the world's largest ever cholera outbreak. It is completely unacceptable. I definitely need, for my own just survival, my own mental health, I need a bit of a rest, I think, after this. I mean, if you could save lives, wouldn't you? You would. You bloody hope you would.